One day, JRPGs just disappeared. I couldn't find one anywhere. It was as if they had vanished off the face of the earth without a trace. Where have you gone? I'll find you, whatever it takes. This is where you were. Xenoblade!
Hey, welcome back. Well, we're talking about the 2020 Game of the Year today. And as you saw from the promo, we're going to be talking about the Xenoblade games. But before we start with the games, we got to talk a little bit about the history. Back in the late years of the Wii, around 2010, there were 3 RPGs of note that weren't coming to North America. Only were going to be released in Japan for the Wii. And that was really disappointing for a lot of fans. Over the years, some of us classic gamers have gone through a lot in terms of not receiving these great RPGs that Japan would get. Some titles that come to mind would be Final Fantasy V, Dragon Quest V and 6, Secret of Mana's sequel, Terra Enigma. There are a lot of games that North America just didn't receive. They didn't think there would be a market for them. Well, the Wii was continuing this trend, and Operation Rainfall was born. Operation Rainfall was a group of fans that got together, and it grew like an ocean. And the idea behind Operation Rainfall was flood Nintendo with letters, emails, phone calls, whatever it took, get the gaming press involved. We needed these 3 games to come to North America. Well, I joined Operation Rainfall in the early years. When it first started up. And it was just a few of us at the time. And put it on Facebook and all different social media sites and just spread the word to all of our different groups and friends and just try to get people involved. I sent letters and emails. Myself, I called the Nintendo hotline. I still have the number memorized from when I was a kid, trying to call and find out when games were going to come out. 1-800-255-3700. And yeah, I actually got a response from Nintendo. I got a handwritten letter from them. I'll have to see if I can find that letter. It might have been typed, but I know it was a personalized letter. I hope I still have that somewhere. If I do, I'll definitely share that on the channel someday. Maybe when we get the community posts unlocked, and I can post that letter if I can find that. But yeah, the 3 games that we were missing were The Last Story, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Pandora's Tower. I wanted all 3. I could only afford one. So I was going to go with Xenoblade, and then I was going to go with Last Story. I was kind of back and forth on them. The Last Story was done by the producer of the Final Fantasy series. It looked really great. And I really wanted to get into that. And then I also wanted Xenoblade, so I was like, maybe I'll get both. Then there was a whole GameStop fiasco where Xenoblade was a GameStop exclusive. Well, news started circulating what GameStop employees and managers were doing. The game became extremely rare, and upon getting the game, managers were telling employees to open up the game. Why would they do that? Why would they unseal the game? Why would they unopen it? Well, when they could do that, it's now a used game, and they can sell a used game for whatever they wanted. So instead of selling it for the $59.99 that it was supposed to sell for, they were selling for $89.99, $99.99, some places $120. And I wasn't playing that game. So I went with The Last Story instead. And Last Story was a fantastic RPG. I've only played through it once, but it came in a great special edition. It came in like a box. There was a bunch of other contents in here, which I still have. But yeah, the last story was a fantastic game, and this is the game that I chose. I was at the time working my first professional job. I was pretty freshly divorced and dating up a storm. So hey, between girls, job, and finances being tight, sacrifices had to be made. So I heard that Xenoblade had a few maybe frame rate problems and some pacing problems. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just go with Last Story. Last Story had a few of its problems as well. But that's the game I went with. Fast forward years later, and I finally got to play Xenoblade Chronicles on the Switch. So that's the first game we're going to talk about. We'll talk about Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Was able to pick this up on launch day, had a lot of fun with it. It took me over 100 hours to complete and get everything that I wanted to get out of it. A lot of great characters. The character design was really good. The character progression was fantastic. I really felt like I had missed out on this, but I'm glad that I waited because I'd rather play the definitive edition than the edition that was slightly broken on the Wii. So sometimes good things come to those who wait. Xenoblade Chronicles. No spoilers, but following Shulk, you may know from Smash Bros. If you've never played a Xenoblade game before. And it was nice to have a little familiarity with the character. Made me want to play it even more. Xenoblade, it didn't disappoint me. It was a fantastic experience. And the battle system was very unique for its time, I feel. Playing through it, it had a really nice battle system. It was a little clunky, but it was great. You could kind of customize your characters, and you can say, hey, here's what abilities I want. And it really mattered what abilities you had because going in the battle, you needed to have certain things in order to succeed. You needed your powerhouse that could absorb hits. You needed an attacker that can go and knock out the enemies. You need someone to heal too, ideally. Because some of the monsters in this game some of them are huge and some of them they hit for this massive damage. Some monsters could wipe you out with just a couple hits, maybe even one hit, depending on what level you are and what level they are. There's a lot of options in here for side quests and collectibles that you don't have to do, but it's there if you want to do it. So you could finish this game probably maybe 50, 60 hours, or if you're more of a completionist, you might get close to 200 hours out of it. Xenoblade Chronicles was fantastic and is actually the runner-up for my 2020 Game of the Year. And the one game that was better than Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition was actually Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And like we said in the 2021 video, with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn of the Golden Country, its prequel story, this came out in 2017. This wasn't a 2020 game. But this is the year that I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I put it off for a little while. I actually bought it in the summer of 2019. Found a really good sale for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Golden Country Torna. And I was like, oh, you know what? It's time. Best Buy's got it for, I think I got this for $45, and then Torna was like $20. So it's like, oh, it's like getting it for almost the price of the full game. No-brainer. Picked it up, went and had dinner with a friend, put it on the game shelf and kind of forgot it for a while and put it off. I was playing some other things. Come 2020, things were starting to shut down. There was a girl I was dating at the time and things were also kind of shutting down there. Wasn't really feeling it and I eventually broke up with her. And I suddenly found myself with a whole lot of time on my hands between everything that was going on. So I said, hey, you know what? It's time to pick up Xenoblade 2, see what all the hype's about the Xenoblade series. Went into it with fairly low expectations. I had talked to some friends about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. They said, hey, it's so-so, it's okay, it's a pretty good game. It's long, a lot to do. I was like, okay. Some of my friends I just couldn't get through it. It was just too much. I had a few opportunities to pick it up, but kept passing on it until I found a good sale. So finally got it, started playing it, and a game has not drawn me in like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 since maybe the 90s, where I was just floored with the story, the characters, the character design, the combat system. Everything just really grabbed me, and I was really enthralled with this game, with the story. It just really resonated. A lot of it resonated with me. There were some tropes that were a little too close to home with some of the main characters, some of the blades, the main blades of the game. But yeah, this was fantastic. And I wish I could go back. There's a lot of games you wish you could go back and just play again and just start fresh and not know anything, because one of the great things about these games is just when you're surprised by the story, some of the plot twists, now you know them. So I'm going to try to wait a little while before I play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 again, so that I can kind of go in as fresh as possible. I feel like that's probably the best way to approach it. But yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, what else can I say about it? The battle system is one of the things that really surprised me. It's a definite upgrade from the first one, and it is complicated. A lot of people get a little turned off by the battle system of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. There's a lot to it. I put in 265 hours into Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I did everything that you could do in the game. And I waited until, I did everything I wanted to do in the game to go to the last boss. And even in the last area, I was discovering things about the battle systems, about chaining certain abilities together and certain elements, and just chaining things off and just being an unstoppable force. And once you get into that groove, an enemy can't even do anything to stop you. It doesn't mean the game's easy. You have to really learn the system, and it's not even something you can read in a player's guide or a game facts. This is something you got to learn, and it becomes second nature. And when I played the prequel story, I took a little bit of a break before I played that, and the battle system was the same. And I was really happy about that, because I played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 after Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This was my first Xenoblade experience. And in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, it kind of felt like when the Final Fantasy series introduced the active time battle ATB system back in 4, 5, and 6. If you start with that battle system and then try to go back to the NES Final Fantasy, so if you go back, you start with Final Fantasy 4, and then you go back to Final Fantasy 1. You start there, and your second game's Final Fantasy 1, the very first one. It's tough. It's an archaic system, and it wasn't quite that jarring from Xenoblade 2 to Xenoblade 1. However, it still was just a little bit slow and sluggish in Xenoblade 1. I expected a little more fast-paced action and just more intuitive control design. So that's one thing I would say is if you want to play these games, start with Xenoblade 1. A lot of people feel it's the better game in America. In Japan, Xenoblade 2 is a little more popular. But I would say start with Xenoblade Chronicles 1. It'll give you a good feel for some of the mechanics of the series. And then Xenoblade 2, you can really kind of graduate and become a master at those mechanics. And they're different. It feels so fresh. And you don't have to play any of them in any specific order. They're very loosely related. But play whatever one you want to play first. But if you can only play one, I'd say Xenoblade 2 is the way to go. Again, try not to get into spoilers here, because if I start going, I don't want to ruin this game for anybody. It's just that special of a game. And yeah, I would say, get your backlog to a good place, and then pick this game up. Make sure you're not playing anything else, because this is the only game you're going to want to play. And if you're in the middle of another game and you start this one, the other game's probably never going to touch that game again. So get yourself to a good spot before you start Xenoblade 2. But if you enjoy a good story, an engaging awesome, rewarding battle system that keeps on giving as you play the game. And just a story that you'll sit on the edge of your seat, plenty of customization, and just a unique experience that's like no other. I've never played a game quite like Xenoblade 2. Even Xenoblade 1 just wasn't quite like this game. They're two very unique experiences. And Monolith Soft, the studio who did Xenoblade 1 and 2, they are to be commended. And I was also a little wary because I had played some of the other Xeno games. I played a little bit of Xenogears on the PlayStation, and I played the first Xeno Saga game on PlayStation 2. And I also had played a little bit of Xenosaga 2 as well. I got through all of the first Xenosaga, but Xenosaga 2, I was like, all right, this isn't very good. Heard the third one was a little better than 2, and if I had stuck with it, maybe I would have played them. But they were okay games. So that's why I was just like, hey, do I want to spend all this time, all these hours into another Xeno game? I'm glad I did. I'm glad everything fell in place the way it was supposed to. I did actually end up picking up the special edition later on eBay. Unfortunately, got a little bit damaged in shipping, but I do have it. We will be going through that art book together in a short while after this video. And a friend of mine, a friend of the channel, Jax Raxer, he also had, for Christmas, given me the Japanese import art book from Xenoblade 2. So we'll be reviewing both of those books separately, 2 different videos. So look out for those. That's going to be a fun time. There will be images in there that could be spoilers, so be wary of that. I'll give a disclaimer in the beginning of the video, but we're going to go into that whole book. And I'll be careful with my explanations, trying not to spoil anything for you, so that you can still go in as fresh as possible if you haven't played it. So yeah, I'd love to hear about your experiences with the Xenoblade series. Have you played Xenoblade Chronicles, whether it was on the Wii, the 3DS, or sorry, the new 3DS, or the newer Switch version that just came out last year? Have you played Xenoblade Chronicles 2? And what did you think? Which one do you like better? Do you like the first one better? Are you typical American, likes the first one better for some reason? Or are you more aligned to the Japanese crowd like me, and you prefer Xenoblade 2? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to know them in the comments. Really appreciate all the support so far, and we'll see you in a couple days for the first Xenoblade art book viewing. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.